Good morning, one and all in here, out there, all around the world. Good morning, but in particular, good morning to Mr. Ken Hatcher, our resident sprocket man himself, for 'tis his birthday. Yes, it's his birthday. We have ways of celebrating that, don't we? If I can remember where you find them. I think we need a bit of that. I'm not even seeing Ken in the chat yet, but we need a bit of that, and we also need a bit of this. Hopefully, you can hear applause in the background. Yes, many happy returns to Mr. Ken Hatcher. Have a great day, my friend. Assuming you pitch up and actually hear this, but good morning to you. Dan Cullen is in the chat. Yo, all you digger, spotter, porn addicts. Lots of those about. Have to say, had quite a few people referring to digger porn yesterday after my confession of being a diggerholic yesterday. Went down very well, apparently. Dan is also saying it's too bloody hot. Yeah, I mean, I'm sat here in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts, have to say, and we're off to film this music video today in a venue. But I think it's fair to say there probably won't be much in the way of air conditioning there. So that's going to be warm. It's going to be very warm. It was a beautiful sky this morning. Sunrise. I can't. I was going to say I can't remember the last time I saw a sunrise. I can't. I can remember the last time I saw a sunset 'cause it was about a week ago. Maybe he's been celebrating down at the Mint. Yes, Ken Hatcher loves a mint. I don't mean the sweet treats and the candies. He actually goes to the Mint where they make the money. I don't know whether he's planning a robbery or whether he's just genuinely fascinated by the creation of coins, but maybe he is celebrating. But Ken, wherever you are, many happy returns. Very quickly going to touch on something that is more in keeping with my side of the business. Just want to make a very quick mention of the assassination yesterday of a brother journalist, basically, a guy called Anas Al Sharif, who's working for Al Jazeera, covering the Gaza conflict, and he and four of his colleagues were basically murdered, and murdered to keep them quiet. Apparently, that's the way that the world works these days. In some places, America, for example, if you say things that those in power don't agree with, you are castigated as fake news and you are sidelined and effectively banned, like Jim Acosta at MSNBC. In other parts of the world, like in Gaza, if you criticize the actions of the Israeli government, you're assassinated. Here in the UK, if you're working in the business to business market, like me, you're just ostracized. You are kept at a distance. Not comparing myself to journalists like Anas Al Sharif, but that there is a reason we have a free press, not just in international news and national news, but also in business to business publishing, because we are there to shine a light on the truth, expose what's going on behind the scenes and behind the headlines. And unfortunately, some people don't like that. As I say, in my instance, it was a case of being ostracized and blackballed and that kind of thing. In the case of Anas Al Sharif, murder. And it's also reflective. I don't know if anybody remembers. Obviously, this hits closer to home if you are actually one of the journalist brotherhood. But what is it now? 5 years ago, the Charlie Hebdo murders in Paris, because somebody chose to run a cartoon that others didn't take particularly kindly to. That is the world we're living in now. Remember that phrase, freedom of the press? Yeah, that's gone the way of flared trousers, I'm afraid. It's not a thing anymore. Dan Cullen says, luckily got air on in the cab, but with all the glass, it's roasting as all hell. Gary Muirhead says, you better watch out, Mark. Mr. Trump may have a red dot on your forehead. Yeah, all joking aside, I know Gary's ended that with a laughy face emoji there. Genuinely worried. Fred and I are working on possibly attending an exhibition in America later this year, and we're also obviously looking further ahead to next year and the ConExpo show. I've said it before, any excuse in the past, any excuse to go to America, I would jump at the chance, even if it was a brief and fleeting visit. I would jump on a plane, go and do what I need to do, come back, because I've always had a real soft spot for America. I'm looking at my diary, looking at the calendar now, and thinking, do I really want to? I mean, the very fact that I mentioned this to somebody, and they recommended that I take, basically leave my iPhone behind and take a burner phone, so that I can keep in contact, but they can't check my Facebook history and all that kind of thing before I enter the country. That's America today, is it? That's the world we're living in. Dan Cullen says, now, here's the thing. How come the manufacturers don't have shades or tinted windows you think would be more effective for the operators? Some do. Some do. It's one of those things. If you go to some parts of the world, tinted windows are pretty much standard. Here in the UK, I would guess they are probably an option. And they're probably an option that only really makes sense about 3 months of the year. The rest of the time, it's fairly dingy out there, and why would you need it? Maybe that's why they choose the screens that they do. If anyone knows more than that, I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to say quick good morning to my mate Pat Williamson, who's just checked in. I'm not even sure where he's watching from, but he just checked in and he said, "Just tuned in. You look 10 years younger." Cheers, Pat. Thank you very much indeed. I'm much appreciated. Let me go back to this. We will get on with the show in just a moment. Yeah, it could start at any moment, really. Israel rules what you can say and overruns others. Yeah, absolutely. And listen, the weird thing with this, and I promise we will start talking diggers and demolition and stuff like that in a moment. The weird thing with this is we can look at places like North Korea, where there is a complete rule over the press. We can look at places like Israel, where that's exactly what they're doing as well, and we look at them and think how very uncivilized, how authoritarian, how dictatorial all of that, how tyrannical all of that is. And yet we have exactly the same thing happening in America, and let's be honest, it's not too dissimilar here in the UK now. I don't particularly like taking sides on any of these conflicts. I realise the latest episode of conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians was effectively started by an incident instigated by the Palestinians, but the response to it has been hugely over the top. And yet here we are. But the British Broadcasting Corporation seem to be on the side of the Israelis. They're fighting a war for freedom, which many other people might describe as a genocide. Weird old world, isn't it? Nigel Williams is here as well. Morning, Nigel. He will always brighten the day. They've got more say in the world, say on the war. Not sure what that means. Jim Turner is here as well. Morning, Jim. This hot weather is to stay to next week. Well, see, the issue with weather, and I realise this is a very British form of conversation, because we are, our moods and our days are ruled by the weather. I'm sat here and I am sweating. I'm glowing. I'm lightly perspiring. I am quite warm, I have to say. In a couple of months' time, I will be sat here, freezing bloody cold, complaining about it. So my inclination is probably just take the heat on the chin, because I've then got months of being freezing cold. Now, I just want to very quickly, two things. Our friend Haribo Starmix 244 over on Instagram just says, can't watch today because I'm going on holiday again. Yes, just back from holiday and going again. So that lucky old you is what I would say. But the other point is, I feel kind of weird now, as we've been talking to each other for quite some time now. I feel quite weird calling you Haribo Starmix. That time I knew your real name. Let me know. Not necessarily here, but send me a DM, and I'll start referring to you by your real name. How about that? Well, I have Niagara Falls running down my house. There's an image I could quite easily have managed without today. Thank you for that, Dan. Really, really good of you. Right, okay, shall we crack on? I think we probably should. Let's roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Yeah. Very quickly. And foremost, our friend Haribo Starmix says, "Call me Twan, Twan or Twan." I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce that, but he can only send DMs if I follow him, and I don't do that at the moment. I will do that. I will do that after the show. I promise. Um, I've just realised while I'm doing all of this that I haven't actually uploaded the reminder of today's question of the day. So while I'm doing that in the background, uh, yeah, that's uploading now. I'll play that for you in a moment. But it is Tuesday, the 12th of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and the fresh-faced newcomer to the world of live streaming. Good morning, everyone. In today's show, Rammer, born in the hardest rock. Bethell Group takes to Takeuchi. You only live twice with Liebherr and Volvo's electric efficiency. Plus, in my morning monologue, and this was very much inspired by our friend Peter McKenna, who I haven't spotted in the chat, but if he arrives, good morning, Peter. Morning monologue today is "It's broke, but don't fix it." Yeah. Now, before we move on, let me very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Now, just saying good morning to Chris Ford, who's just joined us. Let me wind back just a little bit. Gary Muirhead says the sales of air conditioning units and fans will be going through the roof this week. I would imagine they will. Nigel Williams says I used to tint my digger windows, chrome tint no less. See, Nigel Williams, the rock star of the digger world. I can call him what I like. He's a mate. Um, Gary Muirhead says you don't see many desk fans anymore like you used to see in lots of offices. There is one in here, but the trouble is, this microphone is so bloody sensitive that it picks it up. It sounds like I'm humming in the background, which I can't actually have. So I basically sit here and perspire for about an hour, and then go and sit under a cold shower just to cool down. I'm not feeling horny, I promise. Chris Ford says, "Good morning, all the good, the bad, and the ugly." I'll leave you to decide which of those you are. And Chris actually says he's 2 out of the 3. Uh, um, uh, Good and bad? I don't know. I'll leave you to decide that as well. Who else do we have here? Peter McKenna. I did mention him, and he appeared like Satan himself. Mention him, and he suddenly appears. Peter, thank you very much for your inspiration over the weekend. Today's morning monologue is basically entirely not dedicated to, although I can do that, but it is entirely inspired by your good self. In answer to our question of the day, which I will remind you of, I tell you what, let me do the reminder first, and then we'll come back to all of that. Yes, our question of the day today comes once again from our resident quizmaster, Mr. Gary Muirhead. And his question is this: what sport did you play growing up? For me, there really was only one, and that was football. I played rugby once for my school team. Basically, because I was seen as sporty because I played for the school football team. If there was a sport to be had, I was volunteered for it. So I played rugby once. I was a hooker, not that kind. I was a hooker. I was too small, too weak, too slow, and I didn't know the rules. So that lasted literally for one game. I also played cricket for the school. Never really my thing. I mean, later, later in life, I discovered the joys of cricket, particularly Test cricket, and I am actually going to the cricket with my 2 boys fairly soon. But yeah, never really my thing. So me, football. The football season never ended. I will get to your answers in just a moment, but I'm going to say a very quick good morning to a company that I admire enormously, which is Dynaset. Dynaset Official just joined us over on Instagram. Dynaset, I tip my hat to you for all your things. We here on this show, we like Dynaset things. Keep those things coming, would you? Dan Cullen. Now, here's one that I never actually had an opportunity to do. Gaelic football and hurling. There was a guy that lived near me when I was growing up. We lived in a block of flats that looked out over onto a park, and there was a guy there, not surprisingly Irish, who used to go over there with his hurling stick and do hurling type stuff looked really bloody difficult. Never had a go at that. Jim Turner had a different childhood to me because apparently he was shooting and playing darts and cricket. Yeah, no, nobody would be in their right mind would allow me anywhere near a gun. Played darts a bit as a kid. Got fairly good when I was about sort of 18, 19. Not really my thing. Peter McKenna, when I was a teenager, I was a bike fanatic. My budgie was a makeshift mountain bike BMX. I pleaded with my parents to buy me a racing bike. I'm fairly sure it was called a Pacer. It was yeah, kind of electric blue turquoisey color, with the cow horn. Are they cow horns? The dropped handlebars, 10-speed gearbox. Pleaded with my parents to buy me one of those, and they did. I got it one Christmas. And then me and my mates went down to the local scrapyard and built ourselves our own, what did we call them? Track bikes, I suppose, is what we used to refer to them. The big handlebars, and mine had a tiny wheel on the back and a big wheel on the front, perfect for wheelies and sitting back and looking cool and everything else. So yes, I had the expensive bike that I pleaded for, but I spent most of my time on a piece of shit that I built myself. Yes, that's the way forward. Chris Ford was a champion tree climber. Never fell out. Never fell out of one, but he came close. Followed by badminton, tennis, and squash. Never had you down as a racket man. I know we've got our friend the Rocket Man, or the Sprocket Man, should I say, Ken Hatchett. Never had you down as a racket man. You live and learn. Gary Muirhead, I had a chopper, not that kind, he says, with gear shifter. I loved my chopper. What one did you have, Gary? Mine was purple with the word chopper written in orange. It was the 70s. We did things like that at the time. Yeah, I love my chopper. I really, best bike I've ever had. In fact, I looked at buying myself one not so long ago, maybe 2 years ago, but they are so expensive now because they're a bit of a collector's item. I don't want a new updated one. I want one of the old ones, a proper collector's item. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, "Did you know hurling is the fastest game on grass? Balls reach speeds of 180 miles an hour." Yeah, I'll take a moment and insert your own joke there. Balls reach speeds of 180 miles an hour. Yeah. Dan says, "Love the Gaelic football. Never liked football. As Gaelic, you can only hold the ball for a length of time." See, that's precisely why I like football, because I could hold the ball for as long as I damn well pleased. That was my thing. That was my thing. Standing elegantly in midfield, spraying around passes like a latter-day Trevor Brooking. Yeah, that was me. Gary says rugby gave it up after a few injuries. Yeah, that's often the case, I think. Paul McHale, Mr. High Ridge himself says, "Morning, Mark. I thought you were one of us beardy blokes. What happened?" What happened, Paul, was I sneezed really, really hard, fell off. No, I've been on holiday. I know there's not much of a tan going on, but I've been on holiday and I didn't want to come back with a white chin. So I shaved it off, and there's a bit of me, being the vain bugger that I am, there's a bit of me that thinks it's not so bad, look a bit younger and everything else. There's another bit that thinks my face looks a bit fat, which I'm not particularly keen on, and I'm not a fan of shaving, as it turns out. I'm kind of remembering why I gave it up. Shaving every day is a pain in the bloody ass. I played a tad of football, but broke so many shins with my prosthetic leg that I gave up. You actually managed to play, though. That's interesting. Hurling sticks are made of from the roots of ash trees. That's how they get the strength and the curve on the stick. I didn't know it was from the roots. Did not know that. Paul McHale, I found my motorcycles when I was 17, still riding at 68. When you love a thing, don't you? When are we going to see Dan's 3-second pint of Guinness? I'd like to know. I'd like to know. And Mick Norton, haven't seen Mick for bloody ages. Morning, Mick. Good of you to join us. 70 years ago, my eldest brother gave me his Claude Butler racing bike. Seventh heaven as a 10-year-old. Absolutely 100%. Absolutely 100%. We had, trying to remember the name of the shop. I'm sure it will come to me. There was a shop. I when I was growing up, I was living in Sutton in Surrey, and there was a bicycle shop there, and they sold all of the rally bikes and all those kind of things, but they specialised in Claude Butlers. And I always looked at those things. Oh, if only. Yeah, if only. Nigel Williams, question of the day. I didn't. I liked shooting, but they disbanded the shooting club. There you are. Nigel Williams says, "I'm clipping that. I used to be a hooker." You can put that alongside my former career as a porn writer. Question of the day: I had a scrambler, and wow, it was good fun. Then got into plant and equipment and tractors. That ended that, and I still love it to this day. Yeah, you do pursue your passions, don't you? I went through a period, probably for a couple of years, skateboarding. Skateboarding really took off when I was a kid. We had loads of stuff like that. I know we had um, things like frisbees. Frisbees were a big thing. CB radios. We went through a bit of that. Uh, but the one that really caught my attention was skateboarding. My parents bought me a skateboard, which was rubbish. A really god awful piece of crap for one Christmas. I think it was like just a throwaway. I'll have this as well. Rubber wheels, yeah, bare wooden deck and everything else. Absolute piece of crap. But I really loved it. And then a couple of months later, I was made, what they call it back in the day, form captain. I was voted to be form captain by my peers in my class, and I went home with a brand new badge on my lapel and said, I am now form captain. And my dad said, good for you. Get in the car. We went down the road, down to Sutton High Street, and he bought me a brand new, a proper skateboard. A more flexible deck and bigger wheels, and really got into it after that. Yeah, just a very quick one. This idea of clipping, I don't know if anybody is aware of this. You can actually do that. You can go to whatever platform you're on, and you can nick bits of the show and repurpose them. I listened to a couple of guys on YouTube and on Spotify. Um, they basically report on what it is. Not me specifically, but they report on the creator economy, so live streaming, podcasting, and all that kind of thing. Two guys called Colin and Samir, and they are very popular. I mean, they've got millions of followers, but their biggest views are not from their own um, output. It's where people have clipped a bit of their show and put it out, and it's been liked and shared and everything else. So yeah, so clip away, sir. Our friend Twine, Toyn, something like that. Good news, I can watch today because there is a burning car on the highway. Well, good news for you, good news for us, not such great news for the person that owns the burning car. Who also remembers a bike called a striker or a grifter? Yes. Yeah. Now, if I remember rightly, and this is going back a long, long way, wasn't there like a series? So I had the chopper. My sister had a chipper, which was a really scaled down version for kids, and there was one between, and I remember it as the grifter, bit more BMXy in style, if I remember rightly. And I don't think it had the big raised handlebars and that kind of thing. Anyone else remember that? Dan says, "Love my old chopper." Had the blue one. Oh yes, the blue one. I was very keen to have the purple, I have to say. Still love a bit of purple now. Question of the day. Went back to the orchard that I used to fly trees in. It's now a car park. What's that? Is it Joni Mitchell? Big Yellow Taxi? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. Yeah. Dan says, "Oh yes, Gary, I remember this." You realise? Let me just very quickly say, we're now 25 minutes in, and I haven't even started the show yet. And this is one of those days where I actually have to be somewhere else. So should we crack on? I think we probably should. Let me roll this, and we'll come back with a bit of rambling. I'm just going to do this very quickly. Nigel Williams says, "I had a BMX and a racer. The racer was awesome, and by gosh, could I get a lick on with that thing?" There's a hill, not so close to where I am now, but where I was growing up, about a mile from my home, called Staplehurst Hill. It's in a place called Carshalton Beaches, and it's one of those big downs and a big up. And we decided to see, just how fast we could get our bikes to go, which in two ways required us to take our lives in our hands. The first was one of my friends actually had a speedo on his bike. Only one of us had a speedo. So in order for us to check our speed, he had to come with us, basically. We did the hill from a standing start, which got us up a fair old lick. I can't remember what figures we were hitting, but got us up a fair old lick. But then we decided if we could hit that road at speed, we could go even faster. So that basically meant that we had a lookout a lookout at the top of the road, and we would ride down a place called Banstead Hill South Road as fast as we could. At the last minute, sling a right down Staplehurst Hill, which was great so long as your lookout was paying attention, because otherwise you were basically riding into oncoming traffic, which is always fun on a bicycle. Um, Dan Cullen, when are we doing the marathon show? I was talking to Gary about this very thing last night. I don't actually know when our 1000th show will fall. Today is show number 977. So, we're about probably 5 or 6 weeks away from actually hitting the 1000th. But wouldn't 1000 shows be an awesome opportunity to see if we could go for like 5 hours or more? Wouldn't that be great? And let's face it, I've got lots of stuff that I can call back upon because but that time I'll have 999 back issues that I can call upon for reference. So maybe then, had a succession of racing bikes with seats that would peg you. The best bike I had was a rat bike. I don't know what a rat bike is, but yes. Did anyone lose their tolerance for racing bike seats? When I was a kid, when I was a kid, I had a bony old ass, and I had a racing saddle, and it basically used to insert itself, not comfortably, but I was okay with that. I was okay with it, partly because I think I spent a lot of my time standing on the pedals and trying to get a bit more speed out of it. Went back to a mountain bike, my son's mountain bike actually, which had a much more comfortable, but still that racing shape. Could not tolerate it. No, no, can't be having that up me rear end. Yeah. The Striker was the small one. The Grifter was the big heavy one. I had a Striker, and then I had BMXs. Thank you very much indeed, Jim. It's weird how you remember these things, isn't it? It was the red one I had with a sissy bar on the back of the seat. Oh, yes, absolutely. And you could now this may well be a southern thing. If anyone remembers the chopper had like an extended seat. It was a long seat that curved up at the back, so you could give your mates a ride. What was that called where you are? Where I am, you gave your mates a backy. Did anyone else give anyone else a backy, or did you have another phrase for it? That's what I'd like to know. The best bike was the local one who you could ride for free. Well played, Chris. Well played. That's why short trousers have padding now. How are these seats for women on road bikes? Yeah, I promise I'm going to press the button on the Rammer video in a moment. Just very, very quickly. At what point do you decide as a grown man, I'm going out and buying myself a lycra outfit? Yeah. Jim Turner says, apparently, up his way, it wasn't a backy, it was a croggy. Croggy. Dan is with me. He is with a backy. It looks like we may have frozen over on Instagram. If I have, I apologize. It's nothing. Look, it's weird. The comments are still going through, but my face is frozen. Maybe for the best. When I was about 11, I had a mountain bike and wanted to swap it for a grifter, but my dad went nuts. Yeah, my dad went nuts when I started building bikes rather than actually riding the one that I'd pleaded for. Gary, the one thing I do remember about having a bike was the freedom. Used to love getting on the bike and going on a long cycle ride. I could be out all day. Yeah, very, very quick. Very, very quickly. And I apologize. We're half an hour in and I've done fuck all. I do apologize for it. But that I say this a lot around my house. There were times when I was a kid, 11, 12 years old. I'd get up in the morning of a summer holiday, 8 o'clock in the morning, jump on my bike and vanish for the next 12 hours. just vanish. And I could go absolutely anywhere. Me and my mates, we would ride for miles and miles and miles. We had no safety helmets. We had no suntan lotion. We had no bottles of water for hydration. We had no knee pads. We had none of that. Now, some may look at me now and think, "Well, it didn't help, did it?" But we survived. Now look. You can't let your children more than 30 feet out of your sight. You have to slather them. Slather is a word, in safety cream, in suntan lotion, and they have to be hydrated within an inch of their life. Yeah. Apparently, in Nigel's part of the world, it was a seatie. A seatie if they were on the back, a barry if on the handlebars. A barry. Never heard that one before. I used to do a 500 mile a week on a bike up to 2022 for work and charity rides. Well, fair play to you, Dan. Right, enough, people. It's 32 minutes. Nigel, I'm in the market for a bike again now, but I'm struggling with the idea of buying a bike for 400 quid. The weird thing about bikes, and I realise there are bikes and there are bikes and there are bikes. My parents paid about 90 quid for my chopper back in the 70s. You can pick up, a kid's bike today for around about 100 quid. It's almost like bicycles are immune to inflation. You notice that, or is that just me? Dan says, I once did a 220-mile ride, 9 hours from Bristol to Hertfordshire. Good Lord. I love the show, but how do we get from diggers to bikes? Fucked if I know, Chris. I haven't got a clue. We'd say larrup them in suntan lotion. Well, larrup. Larrup means something very, very different down south, or certainly in my house. Think, how do I put this? It's another word for your dick. Oh, get your larrup out. Absolutely. You're a cup, not even 150 miles away. Very different. Very different. Choppers are well priced now. I bet they are. Anyway, people, look, enough. Or we used to say piggyback. Yeah, I think our backy was actually a what's it called? A confliction, a reduction, an abbreviation of piggyback. My mate was restoring old choppers, was asking £2,000 to £3,000 for them. Good freaking Lord! I wish I'd taken better care of mine. Anyway, people, look, let's do the show, shall we? Rammer, forged in the hardest rock in the entire world. Have a look.
We come from a land where the rock is harder than anywhere else in the world, where the ground was shaved off during the last ice age. Only the bedrock was left behind. In theory, that made it impossible to build basements here. Well, we set out to test that assumption. We knew there was a way. Persistence was the key. Every challenge we faced made us better at overcoming them and brought us closer together. We refused to compromise with quality. That gave us a chance to create something incredible. Now you, countless people all around the world, rely on us. Our past prepared us to stand by your side through thick and thin. Like you, we are people to whom impossible means challenge accepted. And once we put our heads together, there is nothing we can't do. Today, our homes have basements.
Who would have thought that a lack of basements could inspire an entire company? Eh? Very, very good. Chris Ford, going back to bicycles, which apparently we talk about on this show now. Definition of a bike is a form of transport designed by sadists and ridden by wankers. You may well be right. Dan says a good breaker operator is hard to come by. Yeah, there's having worked with and for Rammer for quite some time. Got to see a lot of breaker operators over the years. Some very good ones, but one of my pet hates, where you see somebody actually putting the point of the tool into the ground and then basically effectively lifting the front of the machine, trying to put as much weight on it. It's called a breaker. It breaks. You don't need to do that. You don't. Honestly. Anyway, let's crack on, shall we? What do we got next? Oh, yeah, we're talking Takeuchi in just a moment with a very happy customer indeed. Back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, Bethell Group, who I don't know, but they are big fans of Takeuchi, and they're about to explain precisely why.
I'm Joe Woods, Assistant Project Manager at Bethell Construction Limited. We are currently on the Farmer Phase 2 Market Street project, where we're upgrading the highway scheme, the footpaths, and to install a cycleway. It's been very useful having a Takeuchi TB370W on site. Due to limited space, we have several compounds nearby and need a mobile excavator to be in and out of the compounds to load materials, unload materials.
So my name's Adam Berry and I work obviously here at Bethell. At the minute on this job I'm driving the duck. Prior to that I was driving the excavator as well as doing all aspects of groundwork. As we've gradually got further away from the compound itself where we started from, the main factor is logistics, so obviously getting up and down from the job. We've been able to travel on road. That's ideal. Obviously if the concrete turns up now I can just drive straight back up to the yard and load it up, so obviously therefore it's speeding us up a lot in that aspect of it.
It's been useful due to the mobility of the four wheels, the speed of it, the power of it. It's able to rip out and break out site clearance with ease.
We're excavating the old tarmac and stuff. It's got a bit more power to it, so obviously it's ripping that out a lot faster.
It doesn't hold up any traffic. We don't need to load it onto plant trailers, off plant trailers when we're moving it. It's a really handy bit of kit when you're in tight areas.
I've used different variety of machines from 1.5 tonners up to 21 tonners on some jobs. Just getting used to the controls in the actual machine itself, due to the fact obviously it being wheeled, controlling the boom and the bucket and stuff, you know, that's all exactly the same. The only difference is, obviously, when you're driving it, it's driven with an accelerator and steering wheel. So obviously now we're going to be travelling off-site itself onto the carriageway. So first of all, you've got the locking pin here. That's just an extra safety mechanism to stop you slurring around whilst you're actually travelling on the carriageway. It also has a feature inside where you just press the button and it will stop you being able to access any controls other than the steering wheel and the accelerator and the brake.
On the Takeuchi TB370W, we use plenty of attachments, such as a block grab for curbs, a forks attachment for pallets, the 3 digging buckets we use, a hydraulic breaker. Being able to use all these attachments make it such a versatile machine and handy on a job like this.
I'll just run you through the interior of the cab and some of the stuff, the features that it has got. It's got obviously the air suspension seat, the steering wheel itself, that's adjustable, which you can bring it a little bit closer in while you're travelling, and then obviously whilst you're digging and you need that space to control the levers, obviously you can move that further away. The other controls are just exactly the same as a normal excavator, obviously control your boom and that. This one is just one accelerator like a normal car. One feature that it has got though, when you take your foot off the accelerator, it automatically starts to slow down and brake for you. It's got a 270-degree camera, so it's got the cameras all the way around the machines. It sort of knits them together and I can look down and it's a bird's eye view looking all around the machine. It's always nice to be able to look at that just for reassurance that there is nothing around the machine. You've got your basic stuff as well, so you've got your windscreen wipers on the front. It's got full lights, indicators on here, just a normal stick like you would have on your own car at home. And then the windows as well on the side, obviously so you can communicate with the lads on the ground, so I don't have to get wet as well as them.
Having a wheeled excavator is the perfect plant for this use.
Yeah, good video. That Gary Muirhead said, that lad gives a good presentation. Well done. Yeah, I agree. One of the things that I've been learning about, I'm a bit of a student of all of these things. Because of the rise of AI content, there's been a bit of a backlash, and there's been more of a move to genuine authenticity within videos and podcasts and that kind of thing. And a part of that is, using real people and real accents and that kind of thing, actually telling their story, which I'm a fan of. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Peter says, I'm a good breaker operator. Shame my tickets have expired. Damn shame. Nigel Williams says, them Takeuchi ducks are mint. Bit scary going downhill towards a roundabout one day. Went like the clappers. Yeah, they can crack along. Peter says, what have I missed? I had to take an important call. Chris Ford sums up the feelings of everyone, I think. Not a lot, unless you like bikes. Yeah, it went a bit sideways today. And Nigel Williams says, just a random one here. I'm eating a maple back bacon roll with egg and cheese right now. Demolitionnews.com is keeping me company. Thank you. Well, thank you to you, Nigel. Enjoy. Kind of peckish I'm on a bit of a diet at the moment. Come back a little bit heavier after my holiday, and I'm not now the beard has gone. I can see this business here not entirely happy about that. So I'm on a diet. So bacon butties are strictly forbidden at the moment. So I fancy one even more. We're going to be back with Liebherr in just a moment.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
It's weird how these shows sometimes flow together. Really is. We were talking earlier about rebuilding bicycles, of all things. What about rebuilding the splitter box on a big old Liebherr excavator? Not the sort of thing you do down your shed, but it is possible.
What if it could give you a second life? We are not fixing what is broken. We are unlocking a new potential. Old meets new, classic meets cutting edge. Together, they create something more powerful. Each upgrade is a door to a new frontier. not just a remanufacture. It is a breakthrough, warranty as new, ready for a second life.
Peter McKenna, I think, enjoying the video. Not so much the music. He says that music is doing my head in. Going to go back very, very quickly. While that was playing, Chris Ford posted this. What's the best make of breaker? What is the best make of breaker? Personally, and I do have a vested interest because I used to do quite a bit of work with them. I would choose Rammer as my numero uno, closely followed, if not equal to, Epiroc. And Epiroc was, of course, Atlas Copco. Atlas Copco was, of course, Krupp. The old Krupp breakers were the creme de la creme, I would say. You'd have to throw Montebear in there, probably. But I have to say, some of the breakers that have impressed me most recently, Caterpillar. The cat breakers today, very, very good indeed. Nigel Williams is also going Rammer, 100%, he says. It's hard to argue. Hard to argue. What do we got here? It's funny how they paint everything first before they strip everything down. Maybe that's a way of spotting problems. I'm guessing. I don't know. Dan says, I once slept under a grey Fergie in a shed floor, was so knackered, I was out cold. Yeah, I can fall asleep on a washing line, me. I love the idea of rebuilding. It should have started in a serious way 20 years ago. A CT D6T CCR CAT certified rebuild, 2/3 the cost of a new one, and comes with a full warranty. Yeah, full warranty. And not only that, it comes with all the latest bells and whistles. It's not just a case of we replace like for like, it's we replace like for even better still. So yeah, absolutely. Dan says, Rammer Chris, BPH not bad either. Whose breakers are BPH? Who makes the BPH breakers? It's not BPH themselves, is it? Anybody got any ideas on that? I'd love to hear from you. We've got one more video to show you before I do my Peter McKenna inspired morning monologue. Back after this. I mean, I know we're running slightly late, but our friend Haribo Starmix, Twan, is off to have his lunch because it's 1 hour. He's 1 hour ahead of us because he's over in the Netherlands. Enjoy your lunch. Maple bacon with cheese and ham. Speaking of which, I did see a very amusing comment somewhere. Where is it? Now, just to be very clear, if you watch Nigel Williams over on LinkedIn, and I'm sure he's on other platforms as well, but if you watch him over on LinkedIn, Nigel is quite the keen cook, quite the chef he is. Does a lot of his own cooking. So there is every likelihood that the bacon sarnie that he's currently enjoying is in fact homemade, which works perfectly well with the comment that Peter McKenna said. If he had cooked his bacon and egg butty, we could have called him Nigella Williams. Nigella Williams, yes, absolutely. Well, we may actually stick to that. Crazy, it's Peter McKenna says Prodem is the BPH. Yeah, it is Prodem. Right, okay, final film. Yesterday we showed you the next generation Volvo wheel loaders, diesel powered. So what I'm about to show you is probably the next generation, because these are electric. Yeah, there is the latest Volvo. Very quickly, going back to all things breaker related. Gary Muirhead says Montebear breakers went bad either way. Montebear breakers they've had a bit of a checkered history, I would say. They used to be, well, I wouldn't say necessarily numero uno, but they were certainly way up in, they were one of the very, very best. And then they seemed to fall off for a bit. More recently, some of the latest multi-bear breakers I've seen have been very, very, very good indeed. So maybe they're enjoying a resurgence. Who the hell knows? Dan Cullen advising us all: correct use of breaker, in my opinion. Grease every 2 to 3 hours of use. Lift the machine 6 to 8 inches off the floor. Let the machine do the work and don't push or pull towards. I think that's right. I think that's a fairly simplistic way of looking at it. I think one of the issues that we used to see, on lots of rammer sites were people trying to break and basically punching holes and just keeping going, like suddenly a miracle was going to happen. You kind of have to let up every once in a while, and not entirely sure how long that needs to be. I think it's down to the material and down to the operator and down to the application and everything else. But you do want to be paying attention to exactly what it is you're doing. Jim Turner says value for money and decent braking used to be Arrow breakers. Yeah, I remember Arrow breakers, or whoever made them for Arrow. I think it was Arrow themselves, if memory serves me correctly. Firing a breaker not under pressure, not good for internal reasons. Yeah, does send some nasty shocks up through the boom as well. And don't use the casing as a hammer or demolition tool, Dan. Yeah, absolutely. A pry bar, basically. Nigel Williams. Oh no, cafe today, as I've just completed my assignment for the day and going to the tackle shop for bait and then afternoon on the riverbank. I was jealous of the bacon sarnie. I'm even more jealous of the afternoon fishing. Nigel, you are living the life, my friend, living the life. And Dan says you let up every 20 to 30 seconds. I think it can be shorter than that, depending what the application is. Really can. Anyway, that's enough of all that. We do have a morning monologue to do. So I'm going to roll the outro in just a second. I'm going to leap gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, and I fully understand if you can't stick around for that, because we are at the 54-minute mark. If you can't stick around, I fully understand. No explanation necessary. But if you can, if you'd like to be here, please do. If you're going away right now, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I shall return immediately after this. So, just very quickly, a quick word of explanation. When I got back from my hollybobs, Peter McKenna had dropped me a line on WhatsApp with something that he had been mulling over for his part of the industry, i.e., the haulage section, or the haulage sector rather. And he pointed out the fact that a lot of what ails the haulage sector also ails the construction and demolition sector. I read it, I enjoyed it, I was inspired by it, and so I have decided to do my own version of it. So thank you, Peter. And this is my take on what Peter wrote. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Setting aside the poor grammar, that's a phrase we've all heard and most of us have probably used. But here in the field of demolition and construction, we have a slightly different take on that phrase. If it's broke, don't fix it, unless there's money to be made. In short, failure is often more profitable than the solution. Think about all the big issues facing the UK demolition and construction sector: accidents and fatalities, an insurmountable skill shortage, a deepening mental health crisis, an ongoing gender and racial imbalance, and questionable working conditions. None of those factors and challenges are new. In fact, accidents and fatalities, the skills shortage, and sketchy working conditions have been a part of the industry furniture for as long as I or anyone else can remember. No one can claim a lack of awareness of any of these issues. They're discussed at length within companies, industries, and trade bodies up and down the country. Some of them are subject to regular campaigns and initiatives. Some even get their own dedicated day or week of recognition. But the problems underpinning those campaigns and initiatives remain, because tolerating those issues is considerably cheaper than actually addressing them. Now, I know there will be a million and one other excuses offered to explain why the ever-widening cracks in the industry remain. I'm going to do that bit again because it didn't sound like English. I know there will be I know there will be 1,000,001 other excuses offered to explain why the ever-widening cracks in the industry remain. But follow the money or the lack of it, and it's clear to see that those with the power to make the necessary changes have no desire to do so. Without a financial imperative or a significant switch in legislation, they are quite content to plough the same furrow, even if that furrow is deeply flawed. Let's look at those flaws in isolation, starting with accidents and fatalities. Now, I am personally of the belief that accidents will happen and that we will never eradicate them entirely until we accept that men and women have no place working at heights, close to heavy machinery, below falling debris, in confined spaces, or with toxic materials. But while we may never prevent all accidents, we could prevent more of them. Sadly, to do so comes at a cost. It will mean devising new methodologies which will take time and cost money. It will mean retraining staff in those new methods, but that too will cost time and money. It might mean investing in new equipment or protections. That will cost money. It will mean convincing clients to pay more for safer methods and to accept that work will be slower and more meticulous. Not all clients will be so easily convinced, so once again, there will be a cost. Of course, none of those would match the cost, financial and emotional, of an actual accident or fatality. But like those who continue to drive on our roads without motor insurance, many companies are willing to take the chance in the hope that it might not happen to them. The industry has a skills gap that widens with each passing year, but to plug that gap would require an expensive overhaul of the do that all again. But to plug that gap would require an expensive overhaul of the industry's entire recruitment and training regime. And that's why the industry points fingers of blame at the CITB for its failure to help reduce the skills shortage and then votes for it to continue every 3 years. If we really wanted to address the industry's mental health crisis, we wouldn't put up posters or appoint site personnel as makeshift mental health first aiders. We would change working practices that keep our men and women away from their homes and their support networks. We would offer greater job and financial security, and we would communicate with those workers more regularly and more openly. But the bean counters in the industry have apparently looked at all of that and decided among themselves that 500 plus sector suicides each year is a satisfactory price to pay for doing business. We could change the gender, racial, and sexual profile of the industry's workforce, bringing fresh ideas, fresh perspectives, and generally setting the industry upon a new and more inclusive course. But in order to do so, we would need to make the sector more enlightened and more welcoming. That in turn would mean the removal of the sexist, That in turn would mean the removal of the sexist, racist, ageist, and homophobic elements that have plagued the industry for as long as anyone can remember. And yes, you guessed it, that too would come at a cost. And that doesn't even take into account all of those costly female-only site toilets. So in place of remedies, we offer words. Instead of making the necessary changes, we make promises that no one really intends to fulfill. Instead of action, we offer excuses. And it runs deeper than that. In fact, there are entire industries within this sector that exist purely because the wider industry refuses to make the necessary changes. We have external safety auditors in the place of safer systems of work. We have recruitment companies and agencies in the place of employment and job security. We have mental health awareness trainers rather than changes in working practices. This is why solutions are ignored. It's not that the fixes don't exist. It's that fixing the problems would cost money and stop the revenue streams that failure creates and sustains. And once again, I apologise for stumbling over my words there, but all inspired by Mr. McKenna. Many thanks indeed for that, Peter. Yeah, there's no money in change. And the problem as an industry, I think one of the problems we have is I think individual companies, particularly if you're a smaller company or maybe a family-owned company, you can go away and make some changes. Make your company safer, more inclusive, and more sustainability focused. You could do all of those things, but you will just be affecting your own company. For any of those changes to take hold, We need those at the very top, the tier one contractors and the trade associations to make those changes themselves. And there is no desire or urgency to do so. If you are the chief executive of a tier one contractor, your first commitment is almost certainly to your shareholders. It's not to your staff, it's not to the wider industry, it's not to your clients, it's to your shareholders, because it is they who basically pay your wages. And all the time that system is maintained, we will never see any real lasting change. And yet we know full well that those changes can be made. For example, if if the next HS2 or Hinkley Point, whoever the company or the joint venture organization charged with taking on the next mega project said, we are going to make this entirely electric equipment. We will accept no diesel machines on here. Or we're going to go fully hydrogen. Diesel is banned. We will not accept diesel. The industry would fall into line, and that would set the wheels in motion to make that happen. That is the level of influence and power that those major tier one contractors can wield. But they don't wield it in a way and in an area where it will benefit those that actually work for them. And I the analogy of motor insurance, that was mine, not Peter's. Although, given the fact that he was originally talking about the haulage industry, I'm sure you can see the connection there. But the chances of you being caught without motor insurance in the UK, fairly slim, fairly slim. I would imagine with vehicle license plate recognition and that kind of thing, maybe it's a bit hard to get away with it now. But I know people that have driven for years without motor insurance, and by and large, they get away with it. I wonder if we have the same thing, the same attitude when it comes to things like site safety. Well, we could make some sweeping changes, but nobody's died this week, and chances are nobody will die next week. So, what say we just crack on as we go? And even when you do have a fatality, we've seen this numerous times in recent years. The methods of avoiding your responsibility. Have a management buyout of the company, transfer the assets of the company, so you appear to have less money. So when you are ultimately fined, when you should be paying £1 million, you end up paying £3.60, that kind of thing. So do you really need to worry about making your staff safer? You probably don't. And if you are answerable to shareholders, or if you are the head of the company and it's you or your family, or just you yourself as a principal, you own that company. Do I want to invest £1 million in making my workers safer, or do I want to put £1 million in my back pocket? And unfortunately, I think we live within an industry where most people would prefer the back pocket. And listen, legislation would help, but where is it? And we all know how long that takes to happen. We've had some comments. What have we got over in the comments? Let me have a look here. Dan says, very well said, and yes, lots of issues addressed there. Yeah, absolutely. Gary says, have you heard anything from the whistleblower, or has it all gone quiet? Far from it. Far from it. He's probably more active now than he has been up until now. I'm starting to have my concerns with him though. He started out. He's been very open in his criticism of some individual people and some individual companies and organisations, including ARCA, the Asbestos Removal Contractors Association. He's been very critical of that. But just recently, since I've been back from my cruise, he seems to be talking a lot about finance and money, and people potentially paying to have their names withheld from the book that he's planning to publish. That's not a whistleblower. That's I'm not going to say it's blackmail, but it's not far off. And listen, I'm sure he has his own reasons. But I think if you're trying to mend an industry, you should be doing so from an altruistic point of view, not as a this could be a money spinner. And again, it comes back to money, doesn't it? And listen, I should I be surprised? I mean, the guy has basically admitted that he was involved in what you can only describe as criminal activity, involving lots and lots of money. It would be naive to expect somebody that has done that in the past to not have some financial motive for doing what he's doing now, if you take my meaning. Peter says, sorry, folks, I'm off to the chemist. I'm off to near Newcastle later. Enjoy your days. Thank you very much indeed, Peter. And thanks again for the inspiration. Dan Cullen says, yes, the shareholders have the control. They do. Ghost plates are prolific in the UK. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. I'm just going to clear my throat 1 second. Would an all-electric contract make it fair play for the smaller companies that could afford to change all their fleet to electric equipment, but supply good equipment and amazing operators? I keep coming back to that. There is a part of me, and maybe the ship has already sailed, but there is a part of me that still believes that there is a first mover advantage to be had for a contractor, be it a construction or a groundworking contractor or a demolition contractor or a specialist plant hirer, just going purely electric, even if it's an electric division of an existing company. I do think there is a first mover advantage to be had there, because you'd have to think sooner or later someone is going to say we cannot have emissions. Bearing in mind, not just our commitment to sustainability, but when you look at the way that our friend Sadiq Khan and his fellow mayors up and down the country, where they're talking about zero emissions, you'd have to think that sooner or later somebody will say, this site, henceforth, zero emissions. What you going to do? And I think there will be a lot of people scratching their heads and scratching their asses thinking, what are we going to do? But somebody that's already got an existing electric fleet and a team of people that can operate and care for those electric machines, first mover advantage. As I say, I'm just genuinely astounded that it hasn't happened yet. Talking about ghost plates, crazy edits. Peter McKenna says, one bloke sellotaped a leaf onto his registration plate, was ingenious, but the police saw through it and he was fined £80 for failing to display. I have to say that's quite clever, though, isn't it? Have you scrapped the recap section of the show? I have not, Gary. I promise you I have not. Am I going to have time to do one today? I will try. I will try to do one today. Yesterday's it was mainly me just waffling on, to be honest, yesterday, so it didn't seem worth doing. But no, there will be a recap. I promise there will be a recap. It's only worth doing if you guys have contributed, and you have quite a lot today. So we'll be getting on to that. The thing is the electric equivalent more expensive than fuel? At the moment, the cost of the machines most certainly is. I think the cost of the fuel is roughly on a par. But, we have, as a nation, we have a commitment to zero emissions by, 2050. There will be some making those commitments even earlier still. There will be some that will be seeking to take a competitive advantage on individual contracts by demanding it. So you'll just have to fall into line. And again, I mean, I've mentioned the fact. I mean, the last I heard, I think electric machines, particularly on sort of mini excavators and compact wheel loaders, are 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 times the price of a diesel equivalent, which is a lot to take into account. But they're being produced in very, very small volumes at the moment because there isn't much of a demand. If there was more of a demand, the prices would fall, and then all of a sudden you start to get a bit of a balance. There will be a change, I promise. Nigel Williams says, on the riverbank this afternoon, I will run the numbers for an all-electric demo site at scale. Well, as you know, I've seen one. The one thing that I didn't get into was the cost, because it wasn't. It was, as far as I am aware, it was the first all-electric demolition site in the world, the one that I went to see over in Nuremberg a few weeks back, just before my holiday. But it wasn't actually a realistic demonstration because all of the equipment was basically on a rental basis. It's not that a demolition contractor went out and said, "That's it, we're drawing a line in the sand and we're going all electric." Had that been the case, I think you'd get a better handle on costs and everything else. Also, the location where they had grid power available to them, that's not always going to be the case. So it was real, but not entirely realistic if you take my meaning. What's happening on at JCB on hydrogen equipment? We've not heard anything coming from them in a while. I would imagine at the moment JCB are probably on their summer shutdown because they do that every year. They've been doing a bit. I think there's a few contractors have taken one or two machines on specific projects, but basically to knock off the rough edges. I would imagine. I'm not entirely sure if any money has changed hands or whether that's just a PR exercise or whatever it might be. But listen, they have committed. I don't think there is any turning back at this point. It's just a matter of when it becomes commercially available and actually viable, because you could, I'm sure if you ask the JCB dealers nicely and plied them with lots of money, you could probably get your hands on a hydrogen machine tomorrow. But what would you do with it? Where would you get your fuel from? Unless you're in certain parts of the country, you've got no chance. Dan says, have a fantastic Tuesday, guys. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and tell those closest to you that you love them. I'm planning to do that. Electric machines are cleaner. They are indeed. But are they greener? Are we just shifting the pollution and maybe more pollution elsewhere? Very much a concern at the moment. And Chris Wald, bringing things back to a nice, neat ending, because we were talking about bikes earlier on. Sorry, folks, I've got to get on my bike and do some crushing. Catch you wonderful people tomorrow. You will indeed. I've got to go and, well, I was going to say I'm going to film a music video. That's not true. I'm going to go and carry the camera while my son films a music video. The band is called Living with Humans. It's my mate Nick, who is the chief songwriter. And yeah, we're going to see that in about an hour and 15 minutes, actually. So not got long to do the recap, but I will do my level best. If it's not done this afternoon, it will be done this evening. I promise you a recap. You have my word as a journalist, which is worth fuck all, basically. But I'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. rather, not 11 a.m. If I came here at 11 a.m., you'd all be very bored. Dan Cullen says, enjoy, lads. Yes, indeed, enjoy. I'll be back here tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Till then, everyone, have a corker of a day and stay cool. But I was just about to hit the sign-off button, but I do need to go with this. Jim Turner says, we all know the greenest machines are the old ones that are still grafting. Indeed, which is why we featured the Liebherr rebuild. Andy Thornton was very quiet on the chat today, but good show, Mark. Thanks, he says. Thank you very much indeed, Andy. And Nigel Williams, going fishing, lads. Have a great day. Tight lines, my friend. Tight lines. See you all tomorrow. All the best.